All right. So, tell me about you and what you're trying to accomplish, and let's see how I can help you out.
Sure. So I am an engineer by trade, computer engineer, and I have
Hmm.
about 12 to 14 years experience, specifically in cybersecurity, reverse engineering, things like that. And I've always sort of been, an employee and or a team lead, tech lead, principal sort of level. And so I started to sort of branch out because I saw that sometimes when I was at a small company, I would sort of, miss the boat. I would be pretty early on, but not necessarily early on to secure things in case of an exit, or,
Hmm.
it was situations, especially in the contracting sphere, like government contracting, where
Right.
like a technical success that I was able to sort of help out in didn't necessarily always translate to business success, just because of um, the vagaries and sometimes weird technicalities of the contracting process and bidding and how that all works, right? It's not necessarily the case that you can always just go to a customer that you really deliver for on a contract, and they can't just hand you another contract because it has to go through a process and a very formalized thing, right? So that's what led me to sort of try and leverage my talents on some of my own ideas, or
Hmm.
then look at things like B2B or B2C type ideas that would have a sort of like a direct scaling capability, right?
Right.
So obviously my expertise is more on the back end. So what I'm doing
Hmm.
is I'm building out sort of an app that will turn like use sort of like a machine learning and like web data ingestion engine to
Hmm.
provide like instantaneous sort of stock sentiment analysis for retail traders, which is sort of a problem that I had. Then that I'm a busy person. I have work and I have a home and all these things, and keeping up with the markets and the trading I do sort of on the side is sort of like its own full time job, right?
Right.
And this was an issue I was having last year, and sort of I had this idea in December and January, and then of course the whole GameStop thing happened, and there's this huge influx of people. There's like a huge market of people, like me, and in all sorts of walks of life, right, who are
Hmm.
sort of diving into this retail market. So I sort of saw that as a good indicator that perhaps this was a good time to do that. And so the technical side of it, the back end, the database and stuff like that. I mean, I assume you're more of a technical guy, that you have sort of implemented these sorts of things. So I'm not
Right.
going to
Yes.
lose
Yes.
you if I get in the weeds. Okay, good.
No, no, no.
Uh,
My just a brief overview. I've been in technology for over 24 years. I started out doing uh, ASP and Oracle database development for
okay,
internal applications.
sure.
And I've built everything from brochureware sites on traditional HTML, ASP, through e-commerce platforms, with web services that are consumed by catalog applications. So, yeah, I've got a pretty technical background under my belt as
Cool.
well.
So sweet. So like most of my stuff has been very low level. Like anytime I implement a protocol, it's like, here's my own protocol on top of TCP or tunneled
Right.
within SSL or something, right? So now I'm stepping back and sort of I know Postgres, like that's what sort of what I
Hmm.
always use. So all the data I'm adjusting into Postgres, and then sort of any machine learning I'm using like something sort of like off the shelf like BERT or something like a pre-trained language model.
Yeah.
I'm taking all the data I sort of scrape, putting regexes and things, and then feeding that into that, and then sort of um, the complete raw data is in Postgres, and then there's like another database I have that has like the sort of sentiment analysis, like whatever
Hmm.
analysis I've done, the post process data also goes into Postgres, and then I have PostREST on top of that to sort of have a REST API built on top of that.
Hmm.
So, and then what I've hired out for is essentially like the REST React Native sort of front end, right? That will
Right.
consume that REST JSON or whatever, and So, I don't have a lot of, like, I've built a lot of prototypes, within my sort of career, but not what people think of as like full stack development, right? Like
Right.
that's this is sort of my first crack at that. So I'm sort of trying to cobble together what I like, this technology I already know, with what would be sort of something that would, if not necessarily best practice, at least sort of be scalable, or sort of quickly, something I quickly spin into an MVP that I can just launch and experiment with.
Right. Right.
So like that's why, I have, like, I just bought a really cheap server off of eBay, like an Epic or something, with a lot of cores that I can then throw, machine learning models at or whatever.
Right. Hmm.
And so like a lot of these new technologies, which I think you were probably way more familiar with, or like using things like Firebase, using Heroku, like I would know how to set up, like I have often set up my own Postgres database, right? And I can set up Postgres on top of that, and then that creates like REST API layer, and that stuff like makes sense to me. But I guess what makes less sense to me is, if I needed to scale, you know, I know like Heroku and stuff, you can get a Postgres database, sort of a pay as you go type plan. But it's like, should I just get a VPS and sort of like bolt on my own type of solution to that? Or like, would it be worth sort of learning something new? Because like I want to iterate kind of fast, so I don't want to be like, here, let me learn this completely new technology just because that's what AWS provides, or that's what
Hmm.
this or that. So I have some AWS, EC2 experience, but I was trying to go with what I knew first, but I'm not sure if
Sure.
that's a good idea.
Well, you've got to kind of take a step back now, that you are steering the ship. There's a lot of fires to run around and put
Sure.
out, and you can spend all of your time doing that, learning new technologies, learning how to put things together.
Hmm.
But you've got to ask yourself, is that where my time is best served? Um,
Sure.
as a CTO, as a CEO of your product, you kind of need to start thinking about the people side of things and how that's going to be handled, because you're
Hmm.
going to have so many different roles that need to be addressed.
Sure.
And leading that is going to be a primary concern. Now, that being said, it's okay to stay technical if that's where you think your skills are best applied. But
Right.
if you can bring together a team and put that diverse skill set together of who is a great database architect, who is a great front end architect, and lead that talent
Hmm.
to build, you're going to get a faster delivery,
Sure.
and you can elevate yourself above that day to day. Oh, I've got to learn the newest syntax. I've got to be on
Right. Sure.
top of the newest JavaScript platform.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's great, and that's serves you if your future lies in that application of those technologies. If your
Right.
future lies in the leadership and the visionary portion of your business, you've got to start figuring out a strategy for how to put a system in place for a team to build
Right.
these things for you and go in the direction you want them to go in. Um,
Hmm.
so that being said, do you feel like your talents are best in the technical arena, or are you thinking for this venture it would be better for you to be that visionary and be that leader of the product per se instead of the platform per se?
Right. So I think in general, I'm having a pretty high velocity on the technical side of it, and
Mm-hmm.
the parts that I don't, I'm pretty comfortable like farming that stuff out, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
like design is not my forte. So like I have been working with designers. I'm like, hey, give me a website, give me a logo, you know, like
Hmm.
things like that. And you know, I can even write, but I have outsourced the writing to say like, you know, let me
Perfect.
just experiment. What happens if I get somebody else to write ad copy and I just put the finishing touches on it, and I will literally just use that time to then iterate on, you know, let me extend this API or something, right?
Hmm.
And sort of trying to get that in parallel. So yeah, I feel like pretty comfortable like work staying on the technical side of it, but I guess I've been participating a little bit in the Y Combinator startup school,
Hmm.
which was kind of interesting because they had this feature that apparently wasn't very popular, but I found it great that they had. It was sort of like a sprint review almost, where you would talk with other people who were also founders, and then
Hmm.
each person would essentially do one for their own business, and it was really cool to get in touch with other people. You know, I've been, you know, an employee all my life. And so, you know,
Right.
getting to talk to people who are just serial entrepreneurs and
Hmm.
have only ever done startup stuff was very interesting. Or people who are currently getting their MBAs and sort of hearing from that broad range of expertise was really interesting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, you know, like that's the sort of environment that I feel like I would want to connect with, because, you know, like you said, getting somebody who has the vision, like, and this is necessarily on in the weeds, like I can understand the value of that.
Hmm.
To for me to say, you know, like, hey, I wonder if A/B testing, you know, my sales page, like, you know, is a good idea, or what kind of value that would bring, right? But I don't know how
Right.
to do that, or I'm not
Hmm.
very experienced with that, and there's others who would probably do that all day.
Hmm.
So that's definitely something I've thought about, but I guess I don't really run in those circles necessarily a
Right.
lot. So
Right.
maybe finding the right uh, person for that, you know, like the people who I know who have started their own companies or exited or things like that are sort of the exception rather than the rule within
Hmm.
security, you know, like, I mean, I had uh, some coworkers, they incubated a company called Carbon Black that recently was became part of VMware and, you know, things like that. But in terms of like, you know, I'm not in California, so I think
Right.
there's a lot of other people in other parts of the country, right, for whom this is more of an everyday occurrence. So I guess
Hmm.
I wouldn't know where to start looking for, if you have any advice about that.
So I think you're on the right path. I think you're trying to find people that are doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you may want to just kind of think about the maturity level of someone's experience in
Mm-hmm.
um, entrepreneurial endeavors,
Right. Sure.
because in a Y Combinator or in a incubator, you're probably running into people that are at your experience with entrepreneurship, maybe a little bit ahead. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I would be trying to seek out those people that have done two or three
Right.
um,
Sure.
types of ventures that have that, and say, just let me buy you lunch. Let's have coffee.
Right.
Let's
Right.
talk about what you ran into in these enterprises. And
Mm-hmm.
really, you don't even have to ask for advice on your situation. Ask them to tell you about their experiences. Those war stories will
Right.
be invaluable, because you'll start to hear patterns. You'll start to see
Right.
strategies that they took on, and you'll start to see. And when I say strategy, I don't mean the hand-to-hand combat. I mean I went into this business with the goal that I stopped working after December 1st every year, and that's
Sure.
my break. And
Right.
that those kind of visions of what they were trying to accomplish drive those tactical decisions day
Right.
to day. And if you can start to think in that strategic manner, your day
Mm-hmm.
to day will follow right along with it, because you'll be
Right.
measuring each of your decisions against that end goal and saying, does this get me closer, or am I just spinning my wheels with
Right.
this approach? And I know everybody wants step by step checklist
Right.
ABC, but it's really about changing that mindset to, I think about the end constantly, and that helps me guide my decisions. And that's where your expertise, your experience come into play, and you've got that gut instinct of, yeah, this is absolutely the right choice today because I'm getting closer to where I want to be. And the more you hear from those people that have done that and what their strategies were,
Right.
and you'll hear some of their tactics in there, but it will start just really to get you thinking in a different direction. Most people think about, okay, I brushed my teeth. Now it's time to put on my clothes and go to work. Well, strategic thinkers are, okay, when I get home this evening, I'm going to go and sit in the hot tub because that's my end goal. And it's not a
Right.
perfect metaphor, but it's begin with the end goal in mind, and that will help you guide yourself
Right.
to that accomplishment. So that's,
Gotcha.
I like to tell people, start pivoting towards strategy instead of tactics. And um, your strategy should be find the people who've done it and
Right.
start running in those circles, and then you'll start to become that strategic and that success. So that being said, who are some of, maybe not, I mean, I'm not talking Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or things like that,
Right.
but do you have, I call them local role models that you've
Mhm.
heard of, or um, have businesses that you see as where you would like to be, that you could reach out to and start
Mhm.
talking to them?
Yeah, so I actually ran into somebody completely I mean not completely luckily, I guess. I was following a bunch of UI circles and React Native, and they were looking
Hmm.
for a co-founder who was technical. So I started up a conversation. I said, "Look, I'm not your guy. Like you need somebody who does UI, and that's literally the only technical part I'm not doing." So
Right.
I was like, not your guy, but I'd love to hear, about your situation. They said, "Okay, well, look, this is our app. Here's how we're growing it. We sort of have 50,000." And here my specialty as a founder is growing to 200,000. Here's my path there, and they just sort of put it all out there, just as telling their own story, like you were saying. And sort of the real value I got from that was, going through the Y Combinator model, right, is a certain way where it's like very, very short cycle MVP, charge for your MVP, do B2B, you're targeting somebody who has money and, use that to fund and iterate and things like that.
Hmm.
And sort of he was like, coming in from a different perspective, he said, here's our lever is essentially social. We are trying to do B2C, so like we want to get those multiplier effects of social. Here's how we build a following. Here's what value we brought to them. Here's the our foot in the door of how we built this following we currently have and how we're getting feedback immediately and how we plan to monetize. So it was sort of interesting to get a different perspective that Y Combinator was a little bit more of a recipe of like, here's your steps and here's what you do, and his was sort of like a more flexible approach of here's how I got to where I am and how I see to get to where I'm going. And that was sort of an interesting I guess contrast, like you said, that I think his expertise was specifically and sort of establishing that market and
Right.
doing all those sorts of things. So that's sort of he sort of saw that path to the end that
Hmm.
you were talking about. That's
Right.
where he had his eye on, and then so that he was sort of building the path to get there by
Hmm.
whatever means was the most viable, I guess.
Good, good. That that's really what I would recommend. doing more of, is
Mm-hmm.
finding those success models and communicate with them, do what you need to get on their radar, and get 15 minutes, 30 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and explain to them you're really trying to just become more strategic in your approach. You're not trying to sell them on becoming a
Of
partner
course, yeah.
or anything like
Right.
that.
Sure.
You're just wanting to get a war story from them,
Mm-hmm.
uh, so that you can start to model your approach after those thinkers that have impressed you and made an impression on you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that really, I would say, is your next step, and really
Mm-hmm.
it needs to be kind of an ongoing approach. I always try to find the next step
Mm-hmm.
on the ladder of people on their journey, and just understand, listen to them, hear what they have to say, and absorb everything I can from them, uh, to help me expand my thought arena, because
Mm-hmm.
I firmly believe that everyone's a lifelong learner, if they
Sure.
believe that or not. um,
Mm-hmm.
it may be technical, it may be a very specific career skill, and it can be also that entrepreneurial understanding and focus as well. So
Sure.
um, I think you have started on that path, and I'm just encouraging you to do more of that to expand.
I
So,
see.
yeah, yeah. What other questions? What other areas are you wanting to kind of launch forward in the next short term?
Right. So what I recently got was sort of design, like sort of have the the des- the UI and sort of a website in terms of like the informational side of it. I got, UI UX type designs, and I'm already in touch with a front end developer.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've built out is sort of the back end, and I'm finishing up the REST API part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So then, now I already have a front end designer, a front end coder on the hook.
Mm-hmm.
So I've given them a set of requirements, and then so I'm just going to finalize that, send it over, and then so I think their turnaround was a couple of weeks, like 3 or 4 weeks. So then that at that point, it's just going to be integrated, and I sort of have to answer the questions of, um, does my monetization model make sense, or
Mm-hmm.
what sort of distribution mechanism should I do? Things I have been thinking about for a while that I don't have necessarily great answers to, like um, building a following, like organic marketing, organic growth,
Mm-hmm.
PR, things like that. Things like that that I'm not necessarily really adept in, but I sort of want to seek out other people who have, gotten, whether it's publicity, whether it's paid marketing, or sort of their
Mm-hmm.
experiences about how to leverage that sort of thing.
So, what kind of hand-to-hand sales have you been doing? Who have you been talking to about what you're doing, and getting excited about getting on board with it?
So, in terms of like people I've talked to, a lot of there's a lot in discords, like like
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to show up in the subreddit and get very salesy, like that's not
Yep.
really a great thing I want to do. But I've gotten really active in a lot of discords, and the disadvantage of discords is that it's very balkanized, right? That
Mm-hmm.
every different influencer or streamer or community will have its own discord. But the advantage is that you can listen to a lot of people, you can sort of understand the culture and sort of become part of it, and sort of give people ideas, or give feedback, and sort of understand what people's needs are. So I've been very active sort of in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of a great sounding board of people who are interested, who are potential users, who often are very active traders that are sort of my exact target market. So that's sort of what I've been doing to try and get, market research or, a sounding
Mm-hmm.
board of some needs I can help solve aside from just myself and, sort of building. That's not my own following, right? Like that's not
Right.
me developing content, but it's sort of, that's the sort of communities that I'm a part of so that when I bring up, hey, this is the thing I'm working on, people are like, oh, hey, that's cool. Let us know, keep us updated and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
What about closer in? What about your circle of personal uh, contacts? Could be
Mm-hmm.
uh, friends that are interested in the investing that you're doing, wanting
Mm-hmm.
to do it for themselves, colleagues that you actually have interacted with and had conversations
Mm-hmm.
about the trading that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I understand the broader Discord. You've
Sure.
got a filter there,
Mm-hmm.
but the people you actually know and have an interest in the same thing or an
Mm-hmm.
interest in the technology that you're
Sure.
using. Have you had any conversations with people like that about what you're working on?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, I have a couple of friends who are like sort of day traders, and
Mm-hmm.
their initial reaction was like, "Yes, I've been hoping for something like this, right?" Which is
Awesome.
which is what I would hope was hoping to hear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's others um, who are technical like me and are interested in the sort of theoretical of the technology. Say, hey, I'm interested in machine learning, and here's how I would build it out if I were you, or here's the sort of things that I feel are cutting edge that are very interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of um, I don't know if we want to call it like a bullet point or some sort of like feature that seems like cool and sexy, right? That I sort of use them as my sounding board for like what they would like to see as something that would sort of turn their head and be like, oh, that's very cool or interesting or some sort of that
Mm-hmm.
differentiator, right?
Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get you to think about is your MVP.
Mm-hmm.
How many people do you need as a customer base for it to be break even for you? What have you
Mm-hmm.
thought through that pricing model? Have you thought through
Mm-hmm.
what your operating costs are going to be?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing. And do you have
Yes.
it's 10 people, it's 20 people, it's 100 people kind of number as to what you would break even at?
Yeah. So if at my initial model, which may be naive or something, but if I said if I get a VPS hosting this REST API at say like $80 to $100 a month, and I charge
Mhm.
$8 a month or something, it would
Mhm.
be on the order of like 10 to 15 users to break even,
Right,
which
right.
is not, you know what I mean? Like my advantage is that there are other people in this space. I don't
Hmm.
think they're necessarily doing exactly what I'm doing. In some cases, they have a very bare bones type app that is free. In some
Hmm.
cases, they have an app that is more involved for between $20 and $50 a month.
Right.
Right. So, and they presumably have teams and more infrastructure, but
Hmm.
I have a very, very low overhead. I'm a
Right.
solo, like a solo team, and literally all I need to do is a very inexpensive hosting. And I've already, my sunk cost for the server is like less than $2,000 and something
Hmm.
like that. So I don't really have a huge monthly burn. So like whatever money I've set aside for this, I have a pretty long runway. That's just primarily going to freelancers for these specific tasks that I've already outlined, and I'm sort of
Hmm.
almost at the end of that to launch the MVP
Yeah.
basically.
What I would strongly suggest is you start working on getting pre-signups to fill
Hmm.
those 15 slots. You're
Sure.
going to have to sell this
Hmm.
eventually.
Right.
and your best salesperson right now is sitting in your chair.
Right.
So I would start talking to those people that have said, yes, I'm dying for this. I've been
Hmm.
wanting
Hmm.
something.
Right.
Tell them, hey, we are getting ready to launch. Do you want to be the number one person I call
Hmm.
when this is ready, and get them engaged? If you can get them to prepay their first month,
Hmm.
that is absolute proof of concept that you're, one, you've got your message correct,
Right.
two, you've got an excited audience and they're
Hmm.
willing to vote with their wallets
Hmm.
to get on board with you.
Right.
And I know that can be challenging that first time
Right.
asking for
Sure.
money for something that's
Sure.
not up and running, but it starts switching you into that sales approach,
Hmm.
because a
Hmm.
lot of people can build a lot of technology for a very long time and
Right.
never get paid for it.
Right.
So the sooner you can start asking for that first dollar,
Right.
then you have a business, you
Right.
have an enterprise that's moving forward, and that's the goal I would set for myself. Well, first goal,
Hmm.
I would get one
Hmm.
person on board. I would get that
Sure.
first person to
Right.
um, pay you for the product. The next goal is that break even mark, and then set strategic goals for each month, each week, if you will, of where you want to be on the
Right.
revenue side of things, and work backward from that to know how many people you need to talk to get to that point, because you'll have
Right.
10 conversations and X number of them
Hmm.
will agree to purchase what you've got. And there's your rough percentage of how many conversations you need to have to make sales to get you the numbers you want. So I absolutely, where you're at, you've got things built, you've got things on the back burner with other resources. It's really time to start selling and start
Hmm.
getting people on board and ready to start using the product as soon as you open those digital gates for it.
Right. Right.
So yeah, there's people that I talk to that aren't ready, that have just
Hmm.
have uh, drawings on paper and
Right.
pie in the sky kind of um, ideas that they want to do, but they've never thought about putting a single line of code. They don't know how to
Hmm.
get the team together to do that.
Sure.
You've got that momentum going. You've got infrastructure that you've built, and getting those sales will motivate you to get that last leg done and get creative
Hmm.
about how that happens and you go live with the system. So I I'm telling you, I'm giving you permission. Go sell your product. You are
Hmm.
ready to get those pre-sales and get people standing in line outside the door for the new iPhone. Uh,
Right.
get them ready to go.
Is there a good is there a good like yardstick to judge when to add to the MVP? I mean, not necessarily like whether it be called a pivot or a feature, right? Is there any
Hmm.
number of sales? Is there a number of like failed sales or somebody saying, "Oh, I really need it to do this," right?
Hmm.
Like where's is there like a percentage of like of sort of X feature requests before you start to implement it and say maybe I would get more sales if I did this versus not
Hmm.
spreading yourself too thin or something like that.
So, yeah, if you're just getting shut down because you don't have this red light that I
Hmm.
absolutely need to
Right.
do what I want to do, You hear that 2, 3, 4 times in a row. Yeah, go build that red light. Um, the good thing about where you're at right now is you can hear that feature feedback in your sales call, and that can
Hmm.
be part of that first release. You can know in your gut, you're a technical guy, you know, if they say, I need this red light, whether that red light is a bread box or a bread factory. And you can
Right.
say, yeah, we're going to have that red light in that first release when you sign up. Or you can say, yeah, let's go back and
Right.
think what that is.
Right.
Because a lot of things like that are just simple little
Hmm.
tweaks that can go in quick on that.
Right.
Or you can even say, yes, that is feature feedback that we've gotten from several folks. That is on our roadmap
Right.
for Rev 2, which will be 2 months following Rev 1.
Sure. Sure.
And that kind of thing. So have
Cool.
those conversations. Honestly, it just depends on what they're saying.
Hmm.
If they need that bread factory feature and it's everybody needs the bread factory feature, well, yeah, that's a pivot. We
Yeah.
need to go after that versus I need it to have a little bit of chrome detailing
Right.
on it before I'm good with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
get that done. It'll
Yeah.
be part of Rev
Yeah.
One.
I have a massive feature list and backlog, and I
Mm-hmm.
force myself to choose like 5 to 10% of it for the MVP because I'm like,
Perfect.
I don't want to implement like all of this stuff if nobody cares, right? So.
Exactly. And people will start giving you that feedback as soon as
Hmm.
they have hands on it and they're using it. I mean, some of the most popular products, Gmail, Facebook, they just started out as just the bare minimum that
Right.
needed to get things moving. And then you've heard the you've heard the analogy of the quad on the college campus that didn't have any sidewalks until they all the students wore the beaten paths across it. That's what you're
Right.
looking for. That get people using it, get people complaining about this
Hmm.
is really hard to deal with, and make that
Yeah.
easier to use.
Yeah.
Because what you'll really find out is you may not get new feature requests. You may get, don't make me reach around the world to get here to do this. I just want
Right.
to
Of course.
yeah. So but I think you are ready to start selling. I think you
Hmm.
are ready to start asking for people to sign up and tell them super early bird, ready to go, founder day special.
Hmm.
Join this, and we're launching, and give them a realistic launch date and target that and be live and ready to go on that date for them. And it doesn't have to be next week. You can tell people we're launching in 2 months.
Right.
Get on the list and we'll keep you updated. Send them weekly emails on the progress of what's going on. Get them excited about using it, and then you'll have a gold rush when the gates open.
Right. Got it.